The first thing everyone remembers is the sound, not the pain. A sharp crack cutting through the emergency room, louder than the heart monitor, louder than the shouting, loud enough to make people freeze mid-step. 1 second, the ER was its usual controlled chaos shoes squeaking on the floor, nurses calling out vitals, that constant smell of antiseptic and blood. And the next second, a man's hand was in my hair, yanking my head back as he leaned close and hissed something I'll never forget. "You people need to learn your place." In that moment, the entire room held its breath because everyone thought they knew how this story went. They thought I'd flinch, maybe cry, maybe apologize for something I didn't do. Yeah, that's what they expected. And for a long time, that's exactly who I'd been. I'd been at North Bay Regional for barely 3 months, just another travel nurse in loose blue scrubs that never quite fit right. I kept my head down, took the worst shifts, cleaned up messes nobody else wanted to touch. People barely remembered my name. To them, I was quiet, awkward, maybe a little scared. I heard the whispers when they thought I was out of earshot. "She's harmless. She won't stand up for herself. Perfect target." And honestly, for a while, they weren't wrong. After everything I'd been through before, that hospital disappearing felt safer than standing out. The ER was its own kind of war zone, but at least here no one was shooting at me. At least that's what I told myself. The man who grabbed me, his name wasn't Preston this time. Let's call him Dr. Callahan. Head of trauma. Golden reputation, family, money. The kind of guy who walked like the building belonged to him. He barked orders, belittled nurses, took credit when things went right, and vanished when they didn't. Administration loved him. The rest of us learned how to stay out of his way. He liked power, loved reminding people who he thought mattered and who didn't. When he snapped at me, I answered politely, voice low, eyes down. Not because I agreed with him, but because I had my reasons for staying quiet. I was rebuilding something inside myself piece by piece, and I didn't want attention while I did it. That night started like any other until the doors burst open and the paramedics rolled in, a man bleeding from places no human should be bleeding from. Multiple gunshot wounds. Vitals, crashing chaos, dialed up to 11. Callahan took over instantly, chest out, voice booming. Loving every second of it. Move, move, move. I stepped into position, hands steady, suction ready. Then I saw the patient's shoulder, the tattoo half hidden under blood and torn fabric, and my stomach dropped. I knew that ink. I knew that man. Years ago, he'd taught me how to keep my hands from shaking under fire. He'd dragged me out of hell more than once. And now, he was dying on a hospital bed while a man drunk on his own ego played hero. The monitor screamed. Shocks didn't work. Blood bubbled where it shouldn't have. I saw it instantly, the kind of thing you don't forget once you've seen it in the wrong place at the wrong time. Collapsed lung pressure crushing the heart. Simple fix if you know what you're looking at. Fatal if you don't. I spoke up louder than usual, cut through the noise, and told Callahan exactly what needed to happen. For half a second, the room went still. Then he laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he couldn't stand being corrected by someone like me. "You're a nurse," he snapped. "You don't tell me how to do my job." He shocked the patient again. Flatline. I moved for a needle, acting on instinct, and that's when his hand came out of nowhere. Hair yanked back my neck, screaming, my back slamming into metal. The needle hit the floor. The room froze. Callahan stood there breathing hard, looking around like he'd just proved something. He thought fear would finish the job. What he didn't understand was that fear had burned out of me a long time ago. I adjusted my cap, straightened up, and felt something old and familiar slide back into place. Calm. Focus. The kind that only shows up when things are about to get ugly. When he lunged again, I didn't think I moved. One step, one twist leverage instead of strength. He hit the floor hard, gasping, his arm pinned behind him, while the entire ER stared like they'd just watched gravity change direction. I didn't wait for applause. I didn't even look at him. I decompressed the chest, heard that rush of trapped air, saw the monitor stutter back to life. A heartbeat. Weak, but there. Alive. That's when security showed up. That's when Callahan started yelling about assault, about charges, about ruining my career. I let them cuff me. Sometimes you don't fight the wave, you let it crash and see what washes up. As they walked me through the ER, I caught the eyes of the other nurses. No pity this time. Just something raw and electric, like they'd seen a door open that couldn't be closed again. The police station was cold and gray and smelled like old coffee. They told me Callahan's family wanted everything thrown at me. Felonies, assault with a weapon. I asked for one phone call. Not a lawyer, just one call. The detective laughed until he realized I wasn't joking. When the door slammed open later, and men with authority that didn't belong to the city stepped inside the room, changed. Jurisdiction shifted. Tone shifted. Suddenly, nobody was laughing. Turns out, the man on that table wasn't just another patient, and letting him die would have caused problems nobody in that building wanted to deal with. But Callahan's father didn't give up. He went to the press, painted me as unstable, dangerous a liability. He thought if he spoke loudly enough, truth would back down. What he didn't know was that truth had been piling up quietly for years. Wrong surgeries, covered-up deaths, settlements buried under paperwork and silence. The hospital ran on fear, and fear leaves a trail. We followed it. A young nurse, shaking but brave, unlocked a door she'd been told never to open. Servers were already wiping themselves clean when we got there, so we took what couldn't be erased by a keyboard. The confrontation that followed wasn't loud at first, it was heavy. Callahan, desperate, waving a gun he had no idea how to use. And then something incredible happened. Nurses filled the hallway. People he'd bullied, threatened, dismissed for years. They stood there with whatever they had in their hands, not to fight, but to say no, to say enough. Cameras everywhere, witnesses everywhere, his power collapsed under its own weight. The press conference was supposed to be his victory lap. Marble floors, bright lights, practiced sympathy in every word. Then the screens behind him flickered. Footage. Audio. Documents scrolling like a confession he couldn't stop. You could hear the room turn against him in real time. By the time the handcuffs clicked shut, the story he'd tried to write was already dead. Later, when the noise faded, someone offered me my old life back. Rank, title, uniform. I looked at the ER doors, at the nurses who finally knew they weren't alone, and I shook my head. Some battles aren't overseas. Some wars are fought in places where people think power protects them. I went back to work. Same gloves, same chaos, different air, lighter somehow. So here's the part I want you to sit with. This story isn't about being tough. It's about what happens when quiet people decide they're done being quiet. When systems built on fear finally crack. Was I right to step out of line to take matters into my own hands, or did I cross a line that should never be crossed, no matter who's standing in front of you? If you were there watching it happen, would you have spoken up or looked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments, argue with me, tell me what justice looks like to you. And if this story hit close to home, you know what to do.